We got Vernishta and Vrinranya down with COVID. So I am isolated in my cabin here next to the cows, hoping I don't get it the second time. But the update on my book is good. The index was completed, sent to Vrinranya. She did her work on it, and it's been sent to Vritrasura now. So that's pretty far along. Vernishta returned from Finland in his trip and launch of his book, which was very successful. Today I'll be going over Kamalakshan Krishnangi's chapter in their book, the book that I recommended that they write about the nature of consciousness ultimately. In their interesting style of graphic, what is it called? Graphic comics? Vernishta would know.
Oh, graphic novel, right?
Graphic novel, right. So that's what I'm busy with. I did get a question, an anonymous question that I wanted to address, if I may, before I take the questions. And it's a short question. There are many ways to answer it and talk about it, but it's kind of a question, kind of an assertion. It's said that by some that monistic Vedanta or Advaita Vedanta has an advantage over the theistic schools of Vedanta, of which there are four. Shankar's the outlier, if you will. Fifth, who is differs for them with regard to their theistic leanings, if you will, or convictions. Because he, as you know, he posits that God is the Ishwar, the Avatar, and so forth, are not the ultimate feature of the Absolute. They're a provisional manifestation of Brahman with qualities in this world to help people attain the undifferentiated absolute through bhakti. So anyway, the question, the idea goes something like this: that Advaita Vedanta is better because it begins with what we know, whereas bhakti begins with faith, as if faith is something less than that which we know. We believe in something, but we don't know it. We have faith in it, is the idea, but we don't know. But so what does he mean? The idea is that we know that we exist, that we know. It can be said it's the only thing we know. We know that we exist. We may think other things exist, but we're not. We know that we exist. That's our experience, which is interesting because it's a subjective experience. And we're taught to believe these days that real knowing is only arrived at by objectivity, third person objectivity. But anyway, this is the idea that Advaita has an advantage because it only asks of us to focus on what we know, whereas Bhakti asks us to focus on something that we don't know, but we could believe in, which is God. Therefore, Advaita is better, has an advantage, is the idea. Well, naturally, I disagree with that. And in any number of ways, I mean, address a few that comes to my mind. And One is that it's true that Advaita Vedanta begins with self-inquiry in one sense. Um, but and it is true that we know that we exist. As I said, it's the only thing we really know. We know that we exist. But although we know that we exist, we don't know that we're everything. That we don't know. And that is a tenet of Advaita Vedanta that you have to believe in. Bhakti also begins with knowing that I exist. It doesn't begin. Inquiry, if you will, begins with this. I exist. What am I? Advaita Vedanta says, I exist. Okay, what's next? What am I? Well, then from there you have to believe. You have to have faith. The scriptures say that you are Brahman. You're everything. You're not an individual self. You are the whole, singular self. Advaita Vedanta, in one sense, begins with that. Advaita Vedanta is a discipline, a teaching, an interpretation of the scriptures that one has to believe in order to pursue, which brings us to the point that without faith, we don't do anything. Therefore, Krishna says in the Gita, as I often quote, what? Shraddha ayam purusha. Person is their faith. That's what animates them. It's the animating principle in life. To coin the phrase, or to cite the phrase of Sridhar Maharaj in his poetic way, he would say, suspicion leads to suspension, which is the antithesis of what's stated in the Gita, right? The opposite of that, which is also true. Faith as the animating principle in life, and the extent to which it is lacking in us is the extent to which we cannot move. We become frozen, right? So Advaita Vedanta requires to pursue, which is a path to pursue in the pursuit of understanding not that I exist, but what am I? I exist. That's a given. Yes, that's a given in bhakti also. I exist. Now, the question is, what am I? Am I everything? As is taught in Advaita Vedanta, a particular interpretation of the sacred text? Or am I the part and parcel of Brahman, which is taught and is a particular interpretation of the scriptures from the Bhakti school? So both require the same amount of faith to pursue, to become animated and actually pursue the inquiry. We all know that we exist. It's not that the devotee doesn't know that he exists and begin there. What am I? I exist. So what am I? Where will we go for the answer to the question? We could go any number of places, but if we go to the scripture, then there are different interpretations of it. Of course, the beauty, in one sense, of the Bhakti tradition in this regard is it tells us that we are an Atma, and because we are small, to speak about it generally and in brief, we have the capacity to be overcome by Maya. Veda Vedanta says you're an Atma and you're big, you're Brahman, and you can be overcome by Maya. Oh, well, that doesn't sound as reasonable. If you're everything, if you're Brahman, how can you become deluded by Maya? Okay, then there's the fancy footwork of, Maya doesn't really exist and so on and so forth. There's a way to go down to. But anyway, briefly on this question, or on this point, this is how I would respond. And furthermore, I would not agree that reason is a superior means of knowing than faith. Faith properly understood, transcendental faith, sheds light on the limitations, the shortcomings of reasoning. This is also true in the path of Advaita Vedanta. You can't reason your way into Brahman. You could reason that you are Brahman with help from the scriptures. But you can't reason your way there. Reason is a function of the Maya Shakti. So, what is then the means or the way? If the way is not reason, the way is faith, and bhakti itself is described really as different stages of faith. From beginning faith to firm faith, and for faith confirmed and derived from taste, so on and so forth. So, just a short response to that I received from someone. I hope they're listening. With that, I'll go ahead and take your questions.
Thank you very much. Let's see. First question is from Uddhava from Spain. He says, in Gaura-lila, Sri Chaitanya comes primarily to taste madhurya-rasa, but being Krishna himself and Nityananda being Balaram, is there any moment where they get taken by their sakhya-rasa? And if so, what are the most prominent windows in Gaura-lila to see Gaura Nitai as Krishna Balarama?
Yes, they do, of course. When Nityananda Prabhu arrived in Navadvip, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu announced to his associates that a great person has arrived and they should go and find him. I think Haridas and Srivas were chosen to find that great person, but they came back empty-handed. They could not find him. One of the reasons is because he wasn't conducting himself like an important person. So, where they looked is not where he would be. But Mahaprabhu then took them all to, I think it maybe Yadunandan's house, and there he was sitting on the porch, relaxing in a rocking chair, something like that. And Mahaprabhu went and showed to his devotees the importance of Nityananda Prabhu. And embraced him, and they wept, and in one another's embrace. And Mahaprabhu sat him on his lap, set Nityananda Prabhu on his lap. And I believe, and I'm just thinking of something I believe at that time, Srivas was asked to chant a verse, and he chanted something from, which was typical of him, sakhya-rasa. But I'd have to look that up, or you can. It might have been a little later, at the occasion of the Vyasa Puja, which happened maybe the next day. But at any rate, when Mahaprabhu took him on his lap, the devotees could see an interesting and charming reversal of roles. That is, they could see that instead of Ananta Balaram holding Vishnu, Krishna, on his lap, Krishna, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, was holding Balaram, Ananta, on his lap. So they could see that they were, they were Krishna and Balarama, they were Vishnu and Ananta from an aisvarya perspective, from a madhurya perspective, from a sweet, intimate perspective. You could see that they were Krishna and Balarama. Another story that I'm reminded of in this regard is Sachi's dream. Sachi Devi had a dream. She had Krishna and Balaram deities in her house. So in the house of Jagannath Mishra, they worshipped Krishna and Balaram. And in a dream, she saw Gaur and Nityananda come and throw them off the altar and put themselves on the altar. She was stunned by this. And then they appeared the next, in the morning after she woke. And the implication is that she had the realization, the insight, that they were Gaura and Nityananda. So this was shown. These are instances that come to my mind in which Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Nityananda showed themselves to be Krishna and Balarama to his devotees. But there are many other such instances, and this in particular was also the vision of the associates of Nityananda Prabhu, the converted sector of Saptagram under the influence of Nityananda Prabhu, where so much sakhya-rasa arose. And overall, that's the teaching, right? That Nityananda is Balaram and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Krishna. So it was the insight of every learned devotee. I don't know if that satisfies your inquiry. You seem to want maybe some instances in which they acted like Krishna and Balaram. What comes to my mind only is the discourse, if you will, the writing of Bhakti-Vinod Thakur in Navadvip Bhavataranga, where he describes the Gaura Nityananda Prabhu going from the house after breakfast in the morning on Sankirtan, from Mayapur to Godrum. And at that time, they see village cowherd boys in Navadvip herding cows. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu becomes absorbed in Sakya Bhav. And Nityananda Prabhu, seeing him, of course, does as well. And the devotees in sakhya-rasa who were to accompany them all see themselves in swarups as cowherd boys. And the village boys talk to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And they see through the guise of his Brahmanhood in his birth as the Brahman son of Jagannath and Sachi, and they refer to him as Gopal and so forth. So that's a beautiful example of how at times they would, if you will, turn into Krishna and Balarama before everyone, and those with corresponding swarups would see themselves, as I said, in cowherd dress. In that section, it's a beautiful section. Bhakti-Vinod Thakur gives a prayer there that is very useful for sadhakas who are pursuing that ideal of sakhya-rasa. He says, what does he say? I sing it every day. I can't remember. Hena dina amar ki hoi be udai. Heri bagu Rama-lila shuddha Pranama. Gopa shange gopa bhave prabhu sevase. Ekko mane boshiva se godruma vase. Se godruma vase. Ekko mane boshiva se godruma vase. When will my mind ekman become one with the desire to boshiva, to live to reside eternally in Navadvip? Gopa Sange, Gopa Bhave Prabhu Sevase. And in the association of Gopas, in Gopa Bhav, in the Bhav of a Gopa, I will serve Prabhu Gaur in Navadvip. Hinadina Amar ki hoibe. Hinadina Amar ki hoibe. When will that day come? When the Leelas, the Shuddha Prem Leelas of Navadvip, of Godrum, I should say. Hinadina Amar ki hoibe. Heriba Godruma Leela Shuddha Prema Moy. Filled with Prem, the Leelas of Navadvip come to mind, and this desire will manifest. So this is a nice prayer to employ in pursuit. And it corresponds with an instance in which Gaura Nitai turned into Krishna Balarama before everyone's eyes. Jai Ram, Jai Krishna, Jai Gaura, Jai Nitai. What else?
There's a more practical question from Ganga Shakti. She says, Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj, Pranam. I have never done proper archan, just the basic food offering. During Kartik, I was offering a lamp daily, and I would love to continue with some practice in this regard. I don't have any deities, only pictures. What would be a good sequence of prayers and actions? I would really appreciate some practical guidance. Thank you very much.
Well, I don't know what deities you have, but the prayers would be ideally fine-tuned to correspond with the deities. If they're Gaura and Nityananda Prabhu, then any prayers and praise of them would be appropriate.
She mentioned she didn't have any deities, just pictures.
Okay, pictures of who?
Yeah.
But nice prayers for Gaura Nityananda are found, very nice prayers everywhere, but I would recommend the Namaskar verse of the second Namaskar verse of Chaitanya Charitamrita. And you can read my commentary on that in Sacred Preface. Krishna says, Vande Shri Krishna Chaitanya Nityananda Sahodito Gaudadai Pushpavanto Chitto Santotam. This is a offering pranam to Gaura Nityananda, or the presiding deities of Chaitanya Charitamrita, and describing their simultaneous appearance, comparing it to that of the sun and the moon. If they were to appear at the same time, how extraordinary that would be, how it would light the world, and how their appearance has brightened the world by dispelling the darkness of the desires for Dharma, Artha, Kama, and Moksha, and by way of giving prema. And Kaviraj gives a nice, Krishnadas gives a nice, of course, explanation or commentary of his own verse. And within that, he says, among other things, that the way in which they give the prema is through two Bhagavatas, person Bhagavata and the book Bhagavata. So our attention is drawn to them through this verse as well. But that verse is there. Yeah, as I said, I've commented on it extensively in Chaitanya, in Sacred Preface. So I would recommend you employ that verse and read it. And in doing so, you are simultaneously in your mind paying your obeisances to Krishna's Kaviraj Swami, who could say such a thing, who could give such insights so beautifully and so poetically, and who whose mercy we're dependent upon. I was going to give another verse too, and what I would give would be from Chaitanya Bhagavat, but maybe that one is enough. Chaitanya Bhagavat also gives a beautiful pranam verse to Gaura Nityananda Prabhu. I usually chant both these prayers before giving a class, and I invoke, in doing so, the blessings of Krishna's Kaviraj Goswami and Vrindavan Das Thakur. One of my godbrothers, Guru Kripa Maharaj, once said to me, Namo Mahabodhinaya Krishna Prema Pradayate. He spoke like that. Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gaura Trisenama. What do you think of when you chant this verse? I was a brahmachari at the time, so I knew he had something in mind, besides the standard meaning. It's a beautiful verse that describes Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's name, his qualities, his form, his lila, nam gun rupa lila. So before I could answer, or even my reluctance to answer, because I knew he had some other answer in mind than the standard answer, he interjected, Rupa Goswami, and I like that very much. He said, Rupa Goswami. Our mind goes to the composer of the prayer, who has given us the prayer. We can repeat it. How much do we understand it? It arose in someone's heart. That's a realization, an insight. And so it has great power. So that verse from Chaitanya Charitamrita, we'll save the one from Chaitanya Bhagavad for later. That's a whole other, expression. But this is a very powerful verse. So I would recommend this verse for pranams to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Nityananda Prabhu. And typically then we offer dupa, deepa, pushpa. You could do that. So first offer incense, then the lamp, dup, deep. We say, Esha dupa, Klingo Nityanandaya Namaha. And then offer the incense. Esha deepa, Klingo Nityanandaya Namaha. And then deeper, the lamp. And of course, then when you offer the dupa is a scent. The scent comes from the earth. The earth is one of the material coverings, and the earth is something I'm standing on. Also giving me support. May I not? I'm offering this scent. In a sense, I'm offering. I'm standing on the earth from which the scent comes that I'm offering. May I stand on it, walk on it, move on it, only for your pleasure, something like that. Desha Deepa, and offer the light. Krishna says in the Gita, what does he say? Jnana Deepena Vashvata. So this is the fourth of the four Chatushlok, fourth of the four essential verses of the Gita. What does he say? How does it begin? Jnana Deepena Vashvata. There the light is mentioned. He gives the light and dissipates the darkness of the devotees' separation from him, the pangs of separation. So we offer the lamp. We think of this fourth verse. That's the 10th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. It must be 8, 9, 10, maybe 11th verse there. How does it go? Somebody has it on me.
I have it. I have the verse, Maharaj. Tesham evanukam partam aham agyanam jamtama nashaya matma bhavasto jnana dipena basvata.
Yes. So with the light of knowledge, and this is the knowledge of bhakti, he destroys the ignorance of, which in the higher sense is the separation that the devotees feel and pass through in order to attain union in love with Bhagavan. So whenever I offer the lamp, in my mind, I chant this verse. You are the light. Here I am offering a light to you. Okay? And I put light on you with the light of everything, and it lights the hearts ultimately of the devotees and destroys their separation. May I enter into a union of love with you. So dupa, deepa, and then a nice flower, pushpa also. You can offer these things in your food. This is good. And that prayer. And then typically we take the position of permission of our Gurudev. We say, Yasi Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai, Bhakti Rakshak Sri Dev Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai, Shri Bhakti Vinod Parivar Ki Jai. And taking your permission, Guru and Guru Parampara to engage in the service of the Lord. Let me proceed. And then we offer the items to Gaura, for example, Nityananda, Radha, and Krishna. And then, or Krishna Balarama, or all of them. And then after that offering, as I mentioned, Dupa, Deepa, Pushpa, then we offer them back to the Guru. So, Esha Dupa, Aim Gurave Nama, Esha Dupa. Esha Deepa, Esha Dupa, Aim Gurave, Esha Dupa, Aim Gurave Nama, so forth. And then when you offer the Bhogi Dam Naivedyam, it just means I'm offering, may I offer these foodstuffs. Idam Naivedyam, Klim Gornitanandaya Namaha. Idam Naivedyam, Aim Gurave Namaha, like this. That's a good beginning. That's a little, you have to listen to this a few times, I suppose, to remember that. Maybe get some help from God brothers or God sisters who are a little more familiar, but I hope that helps.
Thank you very much. Let's see. Sadhvi had this question a few weeks back, but there are always other questions. So she asks, I'm wondering if Rama-lila is in the mood of aisvarya, how is it possible that there was this Mataji in the same lila who offered chewed berries to Ramachandra? It looks very much like spontaneous service instead of aisvarya.
I'm not that familiar with the Ram-lila to remember that story. It's a nice one. Thank you for reminding us of that. But our concern here, or our perspective here with regard to aisvarya, is in terms of the opportunity that Ram-lila affords us to enter into Ayodhya. And that is through the example of Hanuman, who is in Dasya Bhakti, and whose Dasya is imbued with aisvarya for Ram. What I mean to say by that is, well, Lakshman is there. He's Balaram. He has Sakya for Ram. Kukshalya is there. She has Vatsalya. Sita is there. She has madhurya. But these examples of madhurya, of Vatsalya, of Sakya, the likes of which we don't find in the worship of Narayan. The worship of Narayan, the active worship of Narayan is all in Dasya. Yes, Lakshmi is there, but Lakshmi and Narayan are worshipped together. They're worshipped together. In Ram-lila and Ram Avatar, we actually find he has a mother. I mean, Narayan doesn't have a mother in Vaikuntha. And he has his brothers, Lakshman in particular. Balaram is there, friendly. As I say, and then of course Sita's love is similar but a little different than Lakshmi. So, in particular, we see this Vatsalya and we see Sakya, but we don't see them. They're not presented as an opportunity for us to participate in that way, to love Ram in that way. The example is Hanuman. So there may be persons in the Leela who have more intimate relationships with Ram that do not involve the same kind of aisvarya that pervades the Lila comparatively compared to Krishna Lila. But they're not opportunities for us to associate with Ram in that way. That window has not been opened to us, if you will. Hanuman is the way. So, Dasya Bhakti. And also Ayodhya, one of the lokas or realms of Vaikuntha, is not in any way considered different from Vaikuntha. That means Dasya Bhav. Everyone there enters into Dasya Bhav, although there's a couple of strange examples for the Lila. Whereas, comparatively, Goloka, Jiva Goswami gives reference to some other Puranas speaking of the Maha Vaikuntha, compared to Vaikuntha, Maha Vaikuntha. This is Goloka. This is separate, about which the people of Vaikuntha don't know. They don't know about that realm. They know about the prakat lila of Krishna, the manifest lila of Krishna. That's charming. Yes. But when you come to the aprakat, to the spiritual world itself, there's no such friendship there that you can enter into with Bhagwan. There's no motherhood you can have for Bhagwan. The prakat lila with the Krishna, yeah, that is possible, but otherwise, no. So this is why we emphasize, one of the reasons we emphasize Krishna is too Bhagavan Swayam. Krishna is the source of Narayan. Because then he has his own abode. And then there in the sakhya-rasa, the madhurya-rasa, the vatsalya-rasa that's manifest in prakat lila, has its place in Goloka, which it should. Anything that from the prakat lila must have its place in the aprakat lila in some form. And we know that even from verses. So you can take a verse about Vatsalya Bhakti, for example, and chant it, and Vatsalya Bhakti will manifest. So it's also unmanifest. It's in the unmanifest. But of course, the unmanifest lila, aprakat lila, proceeds with regard to Krishna from Kishore. It proceeds from, moves like those others are there. More abstract sense. That means, others means Poganda, Kumar. So yeah, there may be some examples of something like that. Giving berries to Ram from your own mouth sounds quite interesting, but it's an exception, and it doesn't give us an opportunity for that, and it doesn't turn, I should say, Ram-lila into a human-like lila in the way that Krishna's lila is human-like. Yes, well, you can say Ram is also human, but he's not human. You can't be so dharmic as Ram. He drives you crazy. He's too dharmic. Humans can't be like that. Krishna's flawed. There's no flaw in Ram. He's perfect, morally absolutely perfect. Krishna's his moral compass is in question, right? Brought into question. So that's human life, right? Human life means it's human. I'm only human, right? Exactly. He's only human. Ram is not like that. He's a Vaikuntha person. But it's a place in Vaikuntha's eyes is pointing in the direction of that possibility, that the possibility of motherly love or friendly love or intimate romantic love exists. Is there any? Can we look a little further? That's interesting. Look a little further. How we find ourselves in Goloka, right? Which is by the grace of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Who would know about these things? It's not that they're not there in the scripture, but who can draw them out? Who has that kind of Sumedasa, that kind of theistic sukriti and sensibility to bring out such insights. This is the contribution of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his followers. What else?
Purushottam Das has a follow-up question. He says, Hare Krishna, regarding the follow-up is regarding the worship of Gaura Nitai. When I chant japa in front of Gaura Nitai, what mood is most pleasing to their lordships? It's easy for me to connect to the mood of Gaura Nityananda when performing Sankirtan for them or going on Harinam, but how does that apply to Nam Japa?
First of all, japa of Nam has two sides to it. If the japa is silent or is whispering, bumps, I think is the word, then it is an anga or limb of smaranam. So amongst the angas of bhakti, or the limbs of the body of bhakti, some are primary, and those have subcategories. So we have Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, Padaseva, and maybe subcategories. So, for example, there are subcategories to Kirtan. There's Lila Kirtan, there's Nam Kirtan, Guna Kirtan, and so on and so forth, right? So within Smaranam, when japa of the name, the holy name, is done silently or whispering, you can hear a little bit, but others cannot. That is an anga of gyan, or excuse me, of smaranam, dhyan. However, when the japa is done out loud, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare. Then it becomes a sub-anga of kirtan. Therefore, in Chaitanya Charitamrita, often Haridas Thakur's japa, which he's famous for, has been referred to in the text itself as Sankirtan. So there's no difference. When we chant the holy name in public, for example, with instruments and others, or if we chant at home ourselves aloud on beads, both of these are considered, from the references I've given, can be considered Sankirtan. So why should there be any difference in how you think? Now, I don't know how you're thinking when you're talking about Sankirtan. Maybe you're thinking of, you're giving it to the public, and then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Nityananda Prabhu want to do that, and you're involved in that, and that way you're more identifying with them. Perhaps that's how you're thinking, I'm not sure. Whereas sitting home alone, it's not the case, and so forth. But I think that the spirit, the mood behind the Sankirtan should be there should be some reflection on Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's verses. I don't know if you've read my commentary on Shikshastakam. If not, I would recommend that. But this is a commentary on the principal means, the method to the madness of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, which is Nam Sankirtan. There are different stages in that and so forth. So I would suggest that you study Shikshastakam, and I have given a commentary following the lead of Bhakti-Vinod, in that Bhakti-Vinod saw the verses as a gradation, as a discourse on, or on the different stages of bhakti, different verses of Shikshastakam corresponding with different stages. I've elaborated considerably upon that kind of insight, if you will, of Bhakti-Vinod. But we begin, for example, with cleansing the heart. So, it's one thing to go on Sankirtan and in the public and think I'm giving it to everybody, but it's probably more appropriate to think I'm trying to get it. I'm singing it in public, so that that it'll be more difficult for me to hide from it. I'm saying it publicly. Gaura and Nityananda are great. Rama and Krishna great. Radha and Krishna are the highest ideal. I'm saying it to everyone, and by saying it out loud, it'll be harder for me to forget about that myself. Right? I've gone and announced it publicly. Just like in India, when you get married, then in Vrindavan, you got a big parade, and the man's got to ride on a mule, and have his head all decked out with a big turban, and the Burma band is there playing the trombones and the big kettle drums and everything like that. Everything stops in the streets of Vrindavan for the wedding, and they're announcing this guy is with this gal. So it makes it harder for them to go with somebody else, right? So you go out in the public and you're announcing through chanting the holy names your own convictions in this. You're expressing your own convictions. And when you express our own convictions, when it comes out of our own mouth, then it's harder for us not to pay attention. And with regard to giving it to others, well, we can only give as much as we have, right? So we want to give by getting, by attaining. Let us become pure. Let us go on Sankirtan that we may find someone who can help us. It's a plea. And you may go and chant, and some devotee who's more advanced than you, but covered momentarily for a yuga or so, and then he comes in touch with your kirtan, comes to life, right? And becomes a mentor of yourself. It's possible. I've seen it happen. So I would, anyway, myself go on Sankirtan in the public, whether it be extended form of that as we think of it in Bhakti-Vinod Paribhar, distributing books or doing kirtan for my own purification. And I chant japa, same idea, in mind and in lower sense would be the idea. That said, Jiva Goswami has given a dhyan, or a meditation, if you will, a vision for chanting the holy name of Krishna. And he says there that the dhyan behind the chanting of the holy name in japa is that my guru has given me this mantra, Nam mantra, and by the chanting, may I enter into and become an associate of yours within the Raga-lila. That could be refined as a friend, as a lover, as may be the case in consultation with our guru. So this is the dhyan. I've written about this in my forthcoming book at some length. So that may be a little different than how you're thinking on Sankirtan, but I hope it's helpful. I would be happy to talk with you more about this. It's a significant, important topic, and I do appreciate the question. But those are some thoughts that come to my mind at the moment. I hope it's helpful.
Thank you.
We chant for the pleasure of Krishna, Rama and Krishna, Radha and Krishna, Gaura Nitai, for their pleasure. I'll tell you another short story that I've told this before, that I was standing next to Prabhupada. I used to have this place in Los Angeles, in New Dwarka, like my footprints were like burned in the marble there next to Prabhupada, just to the right of him on his Vyasasana, where he would sit every morning. and give Bhagavatam class. And I would stand through the class and through the kirtan, artik. So anyway, I was standing there and probably was chanting Jaya Radha Madhava. And so I'm chanting Jaya Radha Madhava in response. And I thought, these names, they just mean so much to him. All that they mean to him, that I cannot draw out the same extent what the same measure of meaning and insight and implication that causes him to tremble like this and weep upon chanting. But here I am chanting. So let me chant just for his pleasure. I mean, it's kind of like a spontaneous thinking that came to my mind. Let me chant just to please Prabhupada. I'm right next to his right ear, chanting Jai Radha Madhava. And Prabhupada turned to me with, his eyes would become big and looked at me with big eyes like this. And I became absorbed in the abhasa of bhava. And my hair standing on end. And then I assume the Prabhupada was pleased. And then after the class, there would be typically a short kirtan. And so two sannyasis were there and they began to kind of jostle back and forth who would grab the microphone and lead the kirtan. And as they were doing that, Prabhupada stopped them and said, no, let this boy sing. He pointed to me. All eyes came on me, and I was to lead the kirtan. Prabhupada was pleased with that. Next morning, Prabhupada did the same thing. He said, let this boy sing. 2 mornings in a row. So I know that Prabhupada was pleased by my thinking. Let me chant for the pleasure of Prabhupada, for the pleasure of Gaura Nitai, for the pleasure of Radha Krishna. So this is how you should think. Jai Harinam Prabhu ki Jai.
Okay, the next question is from Kendra. He says, what are some of the main lessons we should take from the pastime of Vritrasura's appearance, speech, and actions as they are described in the 6th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam?
Well, that's a long, important section of the Bhagavatam. And so there are many lessons there. We don't have a lot of time, but the best lesson in that section comes from the prayers of Vritrasura, which Jiva Goswami underscores as an example of raga bhakti. Raga bhakti. I believe the most significant of those prayers is when Vritrasura compares himself to a baby bird who can't fly. He's talking about his mind. And may my mind be fixed on you like a baby bird who cannot fly because its wings aren't developed and depends on its mother. Or like a calf that is focused entirely on the udder of the cow for sustenance, completely dependent. Or like a wife, as the passing of her husband, thinks only of him entirely. So there's a gradation in these 3 examples. He cites one, then he wants to improve it, so he cites another, the bird, then the calf, then the wife, and then he's satisfied with the last one. So the defect in the first one, of course, is that the baby bird is dependent upon the mother, but also on insects, which it will eat. The calf is dependent on the cow, and the udder is non-different from the cow, but different from the cow at the same time. So her focus is on the udder rather than on the calf entirely, even though it's closer, right? Insects are different than the mother bird, more so than the udder is different from the cow, but nonetheless, it's different. So then he sets the last example. The wife, I believe, like the husband has passed away, something like that. And the idea is there's nothing else. Only the presence of the husband can satisfy the wife. Nothing else at all. Indeed, in his absence, she dies. You know that Kamdev, Cupid of Hinduism, Kamadev, his carrier is the green parrot. Curious, but the green parrot is characteristically, they go in pairs. They fly everywhere in pairs. The green parrot, male and female. They're always together. It's interesting because overtly, Cupid is like, attracting people in different ways, in some ways to separate even from their wife and go with a paramour and so on and so forth. But his carrier is the parrot, the green parrot, who always stays with his wife. The green parrot, the male, is monogamous, right? Monogamous. So it's an indirect advocacy of monogamy. Is the carrier. Monogamy is the carrier of Cupid. And so the attraction that Cupid, if you will, or Kamdev brings about should be so strong that it can't be broken. And what happens with green parrots typically is that when the one partner dies, shortly thereafter the other one does. He or she, in this case she, given the example of Vritrasura, can't live. So such verses are cited by Jiva Goswami and Bhakti-Sandarbha as examples of how Vritrasura is teaching Raga Bhakti through his prayers. Raga Bhakti sensibilities come out in him. And this example of the mother dying, or the husband dying, and the mother pining for his wife, pining for his connection, which is not going to happen. It's not going to come back from death, but nothing else can satisfy. So she dies too. Is kind of the spirit of exclusive Raga Bhakti that we should try to imbibe, or we should understand, is how the measure of the absorption that Krishna, our object of love, corresponds with. What is the measure of that devotion? And typically the Raga Bhakti, there's a spectrum in Raga Bhakti that can extend out beyond the Braj, but Rupa Goswami is centered on the Raga Bhakti of Braj. So I believe for this reason, the story of Vritrasura is mentioned in other Puranas, and there may be a semblance of a mention of it also in the Vedas themselves. After all, the Puranas are retelling the stories of the Vedas and the lessons of the Vedas and the Upanishads and so forth. But it may be, but surely it's there in other Puranas, at least by mention. And the mention is that these several other Puranas, they glorify the Srimad Bhagavatam. They say it is characterized like this, by 18,000 slokas, such and such and such and such, and by the story of Vritrasura, and by the story of Vritrasura. And there the story of Vritrasura is found. So these Puranas are emphasized. Why are they emphasizing this story? Well, this is a real Gaudiya kind of answer to the question, because if we look very carefully at the prayers of Vritrasura, who was actually a devotee but had to take birth as an asura for reasons, it's very complicated, and many, many lessons there. Look carefully there, we find Raga Bhakti, which is ultimately what the Bhagavatam is about. so other Puranas and pointed to the Bhagavatam and characterizing it, among other things, as that Purana in which the story of Vritrasura is told, or characterizing it in one sense, in this sense, as itself does as well directly a Rasa Shastra, Rasa Shastra, and Shastra promoting, advocating, focusing on Raga Bhakti. So that's, I mean, it's a long story. There are many different lessons. Maybe I'll take a look at it. I haven't looked at it in a long time. Maybe I'll take a look at the chapters from the 6th canto and comment further on other lessons that can be taken, but that's taking it real higher and Gaudiya and again, from the prayers of Vritrasura, you can find a reference in Bhakti Sandarbha regarding Bhakti. Vritrasura ki jai, Chitraketu ki jai, Rag Bhakti ki jai. Go Bhaktivinoda ki jai. Thank you all very much. Very kind to engage me. Hope to be with you next week.
Guru Maharaj, Jai. Sorry, I'm a little little out of it today. So we still have questions from let's see, Harijan, Brigu, and Bhajan for next Sunday, and then this coming Thursday I'll be interviewing Sajan in the Sadhaka interviews. So I hope you can all tune in. Let's see, meet up next Thursday or Sunday. Hari Hari Bol.